faith here. I don't know. It's a feeling that I ain't felt, and it's kind of uncomfortable. And I guess I don't understand it. Or I don't know. This is what I'm feeling. You know, it's uncomfortable. You know, I feel that I have to do it. I'm going to do it. But the feeling that's coming with it, you know, I don't. You know.
Well, you know what though, and what you're saying is, which is good, because now what we're doing is we're getting in touch with our real feelings, as opposed to ignoring them or glossing over them or setting them aside and just mechanically operating in the mindset of substance addictive and compulsive behavior. I get mine irregardless of yours. If it feels right for me and it is right for me, I'm not really concerned how it feels for you. But now what we're really trying to do is, and we're going to see this in step number 5, 6, which is about what we're going to get into. We actually, not only do we have a conscience, but most of us knew that we had a conscience always, to some extent. And a lot of times that's what kind of put the brakes on us without going full forward in terms of being contrary or being, just operating improperly, unethically, and unmorally. But my point of it is, now we're having a conscience, and now not only are we showing that we have a conscience, we're showing other people that we have a conscience just as well as other people, just as well as they do. But we're taking the big thing about it, and I want you to understand that, is that we're taking a stand for what is right. You see what I'm saying? And we're taking responsibility. You follow what I'm saying? We've heard people say that, and man, I like the way that we're going into this discussion, the way that we're handling it this morning, which is so right on. But what I'm saying is, before, you know, we were unable to express and to really get into in tune with our inner self and really express it to other people. Are you following what I'm saying? Now we're really showing our human side, and it's unusual, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary for us to have a meaningful role in the world the way it is, the way that normal people operate, so we can fit in there, and we can fit in there with normal everyday people and be contributors in our society, as opposed to a drain on the society. Are you following what I'm saying? Contributors to us instead of a liability, we're an asset. And you know what? I tell you what. Have you ever heard this? If you want to be I'm sure you heard it. Most of us heard this. If you want to be a friend, you have to be friendly. Are you follow what I'm saying? So if you want people to open up to you and be honest with you, instead of holding back, you're going to have to, we need to learn how to open up and be honest to other people. Are you following what I'm saying? Which is something that we've always had a hidden agenda, a motive, and we played our cards close to our chest because we didn't really want no people to know that we was looking for an opportunity for us to take advantage of their weaknesses or to come up in a major way to support our addictive, compulsive behavior. But what we're doing now is totally contrary. We're showing feelings, we're expressing feelings, we're taking responsibility. All that's what human beings do. And, you know, that's what society expects of the members of society. And you're starting to do that, which, I tell you what, before we go any further, let's give my brother a hand. He's about to do step number 5. We want to give him some support. You know what I'm saying? I just see so much promise in you expressing the fact that, there's some trepidation, a little bit of fear. I'll tell you what, before we even get started, let's go to step number 5, not step number 4. And then we're going to jump right off into step number, for the support of my brother and some of us that haven't maybe felt that or haven't gotten in tune with it or have and didn't know how to express it. That fear aspect of our recovery program is very, very strong, and it's a aspect that we really talked about and we really need to pay attention to, so we'll learn how to use it in a meaningful way and how to overcome that in a meaningful way. The fear aspect, I want you to turn to page, we want to say page 60, I want to say 62, no, 61. Let's turn to page 61. Before you came in, I was telling the other brothers that I wanted to kind of like review some of the key aspects and concepts of some of the steps that has led us up to step number 6. And so you came in right in time in mentioning the fear aspect. So let's turn to page 61. Let's just see the nature of fear and what fear brings along with it. What comes along with this issue of fear. Now, let's look at page 61. And that men, for the men that don't know, and just to bring us up to breast, up to par, up to speed, on page 59, it tells us what step number 4 is. And this is going to lead us to step number 6, our step for today. But here's what it says. Step 4, made a searching, and what's that word? Moral, made a searching, and what's the first thing we run to when we get into that searching part of it? What's that word? Fearless. Fearless. So that tells you that that's a key component and aspect of this step. In terms of moving forward, even before we can get to step 5 and 6, we're going to have to deal with some fearful situations, some situations that we're not comfortable in dealing with. We haven't regularly handled it in an appropriate manner. So here's what it says. Made a searching and fearless what? Moral inventory of ourselves. Now let's go to step 4 and let's look at that fear aspect and see what comes along. What does fear bring along with it? Let's look at page 61. I want to say the second paragraph. We got the first set of sentences and then we got the second set of sentences. So let's look at it. Step 4 helps us get in touch with our what? Shadow side, which is what? Our hidden side. Stuff that we didn't expose to other people on a regular basis. We kept it close to our chest. And it goes further. It says that part of us that we have what? Hidden away for what? A short while or what? So long. Our repressed nature. That devilish side of us. That game inside of us. And when we actually acknowledged it in terms of repressed, we felt bad about it, but we would never let anybody else know that we felt bad about it. Now that you're about to do your step number 5, you repressed it and kept it to yourself, but you're about to reveal it and share it to somebody. We kept that close to ourselves. Are you following what I'm saying? Now let's go a little bit further and see what it says about that. Our hidden, good to see you here, brother. All right. Always a pleasure. Now let's go a little bit further about that repressed nature. It says, in the process of making our inventory, we will develop and broaden our understanding of our behavior. So you're growing, you're developing, you're coming out of that shell. All of us are if we do this step right. Now we go a little bit further. It says we will see that our shadow, or that hidden side, is an integral part of our nature and must be accepted by us. This part of our nature hides our this is what fear gets all that in there. Look at that. It hides our, what's the first thing we run into when we're dealing with this fear aspect? Our what? Resentments. Anybody see that? Yeah. We got some resentments that we never really addressed. Are you following what I'm saying? But they were working on the inside of us. Are you following? Now we're about to discuss these things. Here we go. But we ain't finished there. It hides our resentments. And what's the next one? Fears and other repressed feelings. As we begin to see ourselves, we will it's a learning process to accept our whole character, the good and the bad, as I was saying, balancing it out. This acceptance will free us to discover survival behaviors that begin in childhood. So we bring all of this stuff that we actually haven't really dealt with appropriately or addressed or acknowledged even since childhood. So you bring a lot to that. When we go to do our step 5, we bring issues from childhood up to this present day, to the person that we're going to share this, made this search, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being. That's a lot of luggage. And if you make one false move, you know what I'm saying, or you do one thing, it can really kind of really make you seriously uncomfortable. You follow what I'm saying? Now let's go a little bit further. It says, in the context of our turbulent early years, these behaviors were what? Life-saving. However, their continuation into adulthood renders us what? Dysfunctional. So we're about to iron all of that out in terms of no longer operating in dysfunctionality. Now let's look when we do step number 5. Step number 5, admitted to God. Let's look on page 62. Here's another thing that we bring along with us as we talk about. Remember we talked about resentment and fear are 2 issues on page 62 at the top that need to be dealt with before we can proceed in this process. And just because we're running out of time, let's look at the next paragraph. It said fear limits our ability to be rational and reasonable. Check this out. When fear is present, it is difficult to see situations in their true perspective. That's why I want to give you some feedback in terms of going down there and doing step number 5. Fear is the root of other repressive and painful feelings. It prevents us from expressing ourselves honestly and stops us from responding in appropriate ways to threatening situations. So we want to go down there. When we do this step number 5, we can't let the fear overwhelm us, but we got to bring some balance to it because we want to respond and get the most out of that process or as we do that step number 5. But here's what it says. We go a little bit further, but it has bigger ramifications. It says, so here we go. Respond in appropriate ways to threatening situations. So to change our behavior, we must first face and accept our fears by acknowledging our fearful nature, that we can expect a temporary loss of self-esteem. We're talking about that, kind of expressing that. Fortunately, this will return as we become more willing to rely on God. So when you go down there, you want to make sure that when you do this step number 5, admitting to God, to ourselves, and another human being, you go down there, the first person you're admitting to is God. So you're going down there in good company. You're going down there to God that has forgiven you for your past, present, and future sins. No matter how dark your past may be, you've been forgiven. Are you following what I'm saying? And no matter how insignificant or useless or unbalanced you look at those situations, you have to understand that God loves you and He has a plan of deliverance from you, from your past and the dark side that you operated in. Now you follow what I'm saying? And then He says, no matter how sinful, no matter how, as you said, if other people saw it, no matter how sinful you are, no matter how separated from God, He loves you and He has a plan to separate. He has a plan to deliver you from those past behaviors. Are you following what I'm saying? He has a plan for you. And so what you go down there and you do, or you choose that partner. We talked about this. I want to get to step number 6. We choose that, but we choose the partner that we're going to discuss this with. But first of all, we've already discussed it with God, and we're in the best company in terms of that can make changes and forgive us and provide us the mercy. You follow what I'm saying? That's necessary to really come up in a meaningful way. Does any of that make any sense? Hey, brother, does any of that make any sense? Let's go to step number 6. I had a feeling, as I told you before you came in, I had just told the men that I want to start discussing some of the other steps. Didn't I mention that? Didn't I mention that we wanted to kind of review some of the other steps to lead us up to step number 6? Before we go any further, men, but in terms of trusting God to give us some balance into working these steps and getting the most out of them, let's say this ready prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Just for today. Okay, now let's look at page 103, man. Now that brings us up fast forward, and we're actually on step number 6. So let's discuss step number 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Now that takes in a lot. We scratched the surface in terms of reviewing step number 4. But before we can hand everything over to God and actually expect Him to be able to, we can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. And of course, God is capable of doing anything but failing. But before we can expect Him to handle all those situations in terms of our lives, is that we have to be willing to give Him everything. Are you following what I'm saying? Because He is our everything. So this is what it says in terms of, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters. How do we find out what the defects of characters are if we haven't done steps 1 through 5? Are you following what I'm saying? Now let's just take a quick look, and I'm going to tell you, well, we can say it off the top. In step number 1, when we says we're entirely ready, here's part of all these defects of characters. Step number 1, we admitted that we were powerless over the separation of God, and that our lives have become unmanageable, out of whack, out of control. Are you following? We handing that to God because we've done that step. Step number 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. We actually believe that God can do this. That a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. We're back to right thinking now. Are you following what I'm saying? Unmanageable. Now we got the right thinking. Now the third part of it is made a decision to turn our will and our lives. We're making a decision. You follow what I'm saying? To turn our will and lives over to care of God. And so now that we're in terms of step number 6, we're entirely ready to do that. Step number 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory. We checked out ourselves thoroughly. Step number 5, admit to God, to ourselves. And now we're up to step number 6. Now check this out. Let's go a little bit further. The power passage or the spiritual fuel to carry out that step is expressed in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 10, which is right up under the step itself. And here it is, the power passage. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Now, if you want him to lift you up, you want him to lift you up above everything that we brought up to this particular point in terms of steps 1 through 5. Does that make any sense? I can't, God can, and I'm expecting him to lift me up above and beyond and through everything that I've dealt with in terms of steps 1 through 5. Does any of that make any sense? And that's a humbling experience. Are you following what I'm saying? Just as you were saying, you're about to do your step number 5. The question becomes, do you actually faithfully and trustfully and honestly believe that God is capable of lifting you up, over, and through everything that you're about to express to that other person? You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. That's a humbling position to put yourself in. Are you following what I'm saying? However, when I hit you with this one, I want to cover that whole theory aspect as much as I possibly can. In the book of Peter, and this is just for future reference, and you can take this one, and kind of store it away for later, for you to reflect on later. In the book of Peter, it says, 1 Peter chapter 2, it says, chapter 2, I want to say, verse, no it ain't, here it is, chapter 5, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. Hey, this is very good for you when you go down there. Listen to this one, man. Casting all, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Tell me this is similar. Listen to this one. Casting all your care, just like being entirely ready. Are you following what I'm saying? Casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. Let me go a little bit further. That's verse 7. Verse 7 says, and be sober. That's what we're talking about in terms of substance and chemical dependency free. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. We're not going to let him devour us, because we're casting all our care upon God. Are you following what I'm saying? Does that kind of, can you see where that ties in right there? Yeah. If we're going to cast all our care, in other words, we're trusting, we're casting everything that we've done in terms of steps 1 through 5 in the hand of God. He's going to lift us up, beyond, through everything that we bring to him. So 1 Peter tells us in terms of 5 and 7 and 8, cast all our care upon him. So when we do our step number 5, we may be a little bit apprehensive, but we're putting it all in the hands of God. I think if anybody can help us get the most out of that experience in terms of doing step number 5, I think we're in good hands with, not with all state, with Almighty. Right. I think we're in good hands when we go down there. He's going to make sure we say the right thing, our motives are right, and that we come out better having gone through that experience. Does that make any sense? Let's go down a little bit further. So we talked about the few to carry it out with the power passage. And then what he talks about here is understanding step number 6. And we must have an understanding of it. And I like some of the comparisons here, or the analogies or that he makes, references that he makes. He says when a farmer works a field, he begins with the soil preparation. A farmer will plow, disc, harrow, fertilize, harrow again, and finally plant. For a period of time, the farmer is visibly active in the field, which he's done steps 1 through 5. But after he plants, he stops for a while to allow the new seeds to grow. There is nothing he can do except wait and hope. And then he says in step number 6, activity ceases for a season. Why? Because we're trusting God to allow us to grow in those areas that we've discussed in terms of we're entirely ready to have him remove all these defects of character. So you follow what I'm saying? We're trusting him. And here's what, a lot of times, not a lot of times, I want to stop saying that. We have a habit of thinking that more is better or more work is better. Just do what we're supposed to do. And in terms of step number 6, it says work has to cease for a season. And our lives goes in cycles and seasons as well. And I want to demonstrate that in terms of the book of Proverbs. I want to say that's what it is. And it talks about the changes of seasons and how they affect our lives. And most of us heard this before. And it says, I'll get this one to you, and it's going to come right back to you like you've heard this so many different times. If it's not in Proverbs, it may be in Ecclesiastes, but I do believe it's in, okay, here it is in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says, to everything there's a what? Season. So there's a season when we do all our work. Remember, he says, like a farmer, you plow. And we've done that in terms of working. So it says, everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the sun, under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get, a time to lose, a time to win, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to rend, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak. Now, if we understand, by the time we get to step number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of care. Through all of those, check this out. Everything that we just got through reading in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, we're well seasoned. Because how many of us know that we done been through some things by the time we get to step number 6? You see what I'm saying? We done been through some things, man. I mean, you done soldiered your life right on through landmines, through major explosions where people had actually said, you know what, man, I doubt if he make it home tonight, or I can't see him making it through this time of his life right now that he's in right now. It's looking pretty bad. But Timmy, it's looking pretty bad. We put any one of our names in there. They was worried to death. Our wives, maybe our kids said, man, Daddy ain't coming. Is Daddy coming home? Are you following what I'm saying? Man, and so what he says, there are times and seasons, but if we trust God, putting it all in his care, are you following what I'm saying? He can actually redeem us, give us new value, put us back in right relationship, free us from the bondage of that lifestyle and that behavior and the sins that separate us from God. And now God has actually embraced us, going to bring us up, through, over, and beyond. And check this out. Most importantly, deliver us from it. But here's the most important thing. Allow us, after we gone through all of those different seasons, allow us to benefit and to be rewarded. Man, that's awesome. And how many guys, let me ask you this. How many guys can actually been through some stuff and you say, man, I don't see how I'm about to surrender, but I don't see how I'm going to make my way through this. This is it for me. I mean, let's be honest about it. When we talk about these seasons that we go through, this is it. I mean, Mama, you can come and see, but, I wouldn't waste my time. If, you ain't maybe didn't tell them, but you were thinking that in yourself, I wouldn't waste my time. I mean, I'm really not expecting nothing good to come from this. You can come and see about me, but I did it. I told my behind this time. Anybody understand that? And now just look back on it. Just look back on it. Can you believe we made it this far? When you look back on that situation, I can think of a couple myself. I can think of a couple. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of my last blackouts that I was here prior to me surrendering, yes, I called myself smoking, and I set the containment facility that I was on, the wastebasket, on fire. I could have been charged with arson. My life could have been over with. I was working in the penitentiary and could have actually been sent to the penitentiary. God rescued me, man. Gave me a misdemeanor on that one. Are you following what I'm saying? A misdemeanor, man, and got me